Hello, and welcome to the first episode of Closed Sessions, where we take a retrospective look at the Shell game that's just passed. Today, our three returning guests are going to talk about Shell Games Episode 2. I would like to take this opportunity to remind you to like this video and subscribe to the channel. And you can go to www.patreon.com/SoccerOZ if you want to support this channel directly. And you might have noticed some changes on this channel. A big shout out to Mark for designing the new logo and the overall channel look. Before we start, just a little spoiler alert warning. If you haven't watched the second episode of Shell Games and you don't want to be spoiled, pause this video right now and go watch that video. Right, still here with us? Excellent. Now let's get on to the main topic. First off, congratulations to Daniel for winning that episode of Shell Games.
Oh. Well fun.
So, I think this is a good opportunity to just quickly talk about the decks that we were playing, just to give the viewers and listeners at home an idea of sort of what we were expecting the deck to do and kind of whether we've got any thoughts on it. So I might start off first. I think my deck's pretty just straightforward. It's really just squared, summon history, ideally unblockable, and then get a bunch of werewolves. There was actually a side plan to eventually pull out Emerald VtES Slave to give Gwet Superior Temporis and then dig up Jacob Vermeer for the +1 bleed for all werewolves. I see you making a face there, John.
I mean, even with Ankara, I'm not sure you'll have the blood for everything. Yeah.
And the other thing I kind of realized is I don't really have that many actions. Like, I mean, even if I did throw in multi-act, because Summon History is an action card, I can't just do it over and over again. So, John, let's talk about your deck.
Oh yeah, so nothing too unusual. It's a vote deck with some Fortitude multi-act, and it's fairly punchy with a bunch of guns and celerity, so it kind of does a bit of everything. There's some combat in there, a bit of blocking, a bit of voting, a bit of bleeding, so it worked out well. But people didn't seem to like to get in combat with me, so my hand over the course of the game just grew more and more red in color, and eventually I just couldn't do anything.
Well, I mean, Danz was busy going forward with his combat, and I think he wasn't too keen to go into combat with guns.
Well, to be fair, I did have a few combat ends cards, so wasn't that worried. But I didn't have the votes because I had like funky cards, like Reigns of Power, Velas Hunt, that I really wanted to try. But like I said at the start, mine was really toolboxy. Pretty much able to adjust. Although there's one thing that I regret not doing. To one of Daniel's vamps. Deep Song again. Herring Crows. That's superior. Form of Wolf.
So I'll take the 3.
There's environmental damage from the crows at 2.
Yep.
And I had I had a pulled fangs on me, and I was thinking, should I, ready got him for like 4 or 5. Yeah, it was one more round, and then he decided to. Was it combat ends?
Yeah, I've got a bunch of combat ends in that deck.
There you go. There you go.
and a couple of maneuvers.
There you go.
Always
yeah,
pulled fangs
Pulled
first
fangs.
shot. Unless you're going for like the kill, you're better off just going pulled fangs because I believe that sends him straight to torpor.
Yeah. It was,
Yeah,
of course,
just-
I didn't know what your deck was because that was our first combat.
That's
So-
true, but regardless, if you're just trying to put me into torpor just by doing a lot of damage, you're better off just pulling the fangs in the first place.
Yeah, so
Make
that's
me
actually-
spend the resources.
I know. So that's my only real regret in the game. I mean, I knew I didn't really have a good chance. Well, I had a fair chance of winning, but then it was more like a small victory had I done that. I mean,
Had you done that so early, that would have probably slowed me down quite a lot.
Yes. But hey, it is what it is. And then I wish my Jericho card actually happened.
Did it get played?
So that-
I completely don't remember. I know there was a fairly interesting. There was a fairly interesting one.
I think.
Trying to find it. I have my deck.
Yeah,
here
there was a
right now.
fairly interesting political action that you did, Danz, and I was like, hey, I have the one vote that you need to pass it. And
Martina plays kind.
if you put 2 on John and 2 on Daniel, you still get my vote, and that still passes.
Oh, you got the vote. So, was
I'll
it passed?
pitch banishment.
Ooh.
Who did that? And why do you have that?
Turns out that one vote wasn't what you needed to pass it.
Yes.
'Cause who knew? John played political cards.
Yes. Who knew? That would be nice. That would have been great.
Would it though?
It would have burned Ankara Citadel, I think.
I know. So yeah, but it's okay. I think it's a great game.
Yeah.
I just had to really play with the gens 5 and 6 to see if it works. I think maybe a little more focused next time.
It could work
Yeah,
pretty
I was
well.
looking at your crypt. It was a bit all over the place. Like you had 2 vamps with titles and
I know. Well, it's like I said, it was originally a Force March deck, Gangrel. Took those out.
Okay.
Tried to put in the gens 5 and 6, just to see if I could maximize their abilities. And then I had like 10 cards that I sort of mixed around, just new cards like like the Jericho Founding and stuff, and the thing, and some new allies. Yeah, well, it is what it is. So I made that deck just for our game.
Well, to be fair, I think Daniel might agree with me, the deck did have a pretty big impact on the game. So all in all, I think it did pretty well. I mean, confused.
I will
groups-
say it was totally not what I was expecting it to be, because when I saw Massimiliano hit the table, I kind of had my own idea what kind of deck was going to be based on what I would have done with Massimiliano, and
Well,
it totally was not what I would have done with Massimiliano.
I had
So,
only one duplicate card though in my crypt. I think that was Ariadne.
You saying metagaming backfired?
Yeah, metagaming backfired. I thought I would have needed more stealth, and I kept a bunch of resistors grasped in hand for it, and I was wrong.
Who knew?
Hindsight.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I think I just realized we kind of missed Daniel's opportunity to tell us what his deck was about.
That's all right. Honestly, going around the table. So I mean, my deck pretty much did exactly what it wanted to do. I brought out some big vampires. And I started with Nakthreb, which was real lucky. The crypt was, turns out, not so much designed to guarantee him first turn. And then I was just able to accelerate a little bit, get out a couple of other vampires, make a bunch of Waters of Duat, and just repeatedly bleed for 1.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember a lot of that.
Yep. And yeah, the deck did what it was meant to do.
Since we're talking about that, I did wish that I think John had a bolt card. Was that you,
Yep.
John?
That was me. I had Ancilla Empowerment at some point in the game.
Yeah, so you'll notice after a while, I just kept always 1 minion untapped with a blood. Because from pretty much the start of the game, I was holding a delay in tactics.
Yep.
So I could at least stall it for a turn and try to get some pull.
Right, for it, sure.
I mean, I don't think not playing it or playing it was right or wrong. I think they definitely would have led to different outcomes.
I agree.
What would you say, John, that would count as something that went wrong with your game, at least?
In terms of gameplay, I don't think I made any bad or wrong decisions throughout the game. I think the deck could use a little tweaking to allow me like some outlets to like flash out my red cards whenever I get too many. Yeah, so in the deck version I played, my only enter combat cards were 2 copies of Fleetness and of course Second Tradition. Yeah, but besides that, I didn't have any enter combat. So if I were to make a change, I think maybe I'd stuff in 1 more copy of Fleetness and maybe 2 copies of Archon. But my point is, if no one blocks me and I can't block anyone, then I can't do anything with my red cards. So,
well, to be fair, if you wanted to enter combat, you shouldn't be running around saying, I have guns, I have guns.
Demetra with a gun will bleed for 1. I paid 2 pool. You have to. It's bling. You have to show it off.
It's a free bleed. We'll take it. I will take that.
Yeah. What about you, Daniel? Do you think there was any misplay on your part, or something that you wish you could have done slightly better, or?
I probably could have discarded some Mesubed shits earlier than I did. Really shouldn't have discarded that combat ends first turn. It's a lesson I still seem to have not learned. I was like, it's combat ends. I no idea if they're playing combat. It's always safe to keep a combat ends. If I have 2 of them, it's safe to keep 2 until I know that I'm not dealing with combat.
Yeah.
But again, other than that, I think my deck fired on all cylinders. It did everything it was meant to do.
Yeah, fair enough. I think on my part, the thing I did that I probably shouldn't have was, so on turn 2 or turn 3, I had Ankle Cog in hand, and I think you called it, Daniel. And then I was looking at it and I was like, it's Ankle Cog. I just want to be able to act an extra time each turn. So just looked at Midra was locked, and I was like, okay, what are the odds he has Second Traditions, and just ran right into it without. You know what? John, Gwen's gonna bleed you for 1.
Let's try Second Tradition.
Okay. Well, okay, successful.
Okay.
Nothing, I guess.
Sure.
And you shoot with the gun?
Yep, I'll shoot with the
I'll
gun.
take 1. I'm not pressing. Alright, you're gonna play your side.
I will.
For 2.
Guns. I'll press with Resistor's Grasp. Gun for 2.
As nice as Encore Cog is, more often than not, it seems to be a trap.
Yeah.
Like, it's really good at what it does, but if you can't stick that bleed through, if you don't have the stealth for it, you're just going to be a dead card in hand.
Yeah, it also gets messed up when your bleed gets bounced or reduced to 0.
Yep.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's really one of those cards, like when you're putting deck together, you look at it, it's like, oh, I have a 10 cap. I should just put 1 in because I have a 10 cap. Why not? But then
Yeah, but also you need to be able to unlock that 10 cap, and you need to have actions that are worth doing on other people's turns. That type of thing where you can get good value out of out of the action. That's when it's a good time to put it in your deck. If it's because, hey, I've got a 10 cap and some stealth and bleed, yeah, are you really getting the value?
Well, in this case, it's summon history, right? The limiting factor is you can only summon history once during your turn, and if you can get a second summon history every round, that really can speed things up.
Yeah, so in this case, then yes, it is worth having.
Yeah, but I got greedy, I think. I don't think my hand was set up to properly deal with combat. I only had Flash of Marble, and I thought that would have been enough, and then I forgot. I completely forgot about Sight. Yeah, I think greedy at that point, I was just greedy because I killed Cog, and then I had like 2 copies of Summon History with Smelt in hand. I was like, oh, if I can pull this off. Because I play Homunculus in the deck as well.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
Yeah, I think I remember you discarding that.
Homunculus. Well,
yes.
That's the thing, right? The idea behind my discard phase was because Summon History can pull from the airship. So as long as I've got equipment, retainers, allies, I'm just gonna discard one of them. At some point it'll come back, and then especially those that are like require something other than Gangrel.
Okay. Yeah, I remember that. Okay, makes sense.
So were there any sort of plays that caught your attention that you'd be keen to talk about?
I'd like to ask John, how many second treads did you have?
I think it was 8.
That's okay, because I encountered at least one, and that's the one I remember. That's the one I remember. I said, okay, sure, let him do what he does.
I mean, okay, so that was when you played the Constant Revolution. To be honest, I didn't really care about the Constant Revolution. It was more that you were playing it with the Vampire with Vessel, so...
Constant Revolution?
Second edition.
Yes. Okay. I was not expecting any intercept, actually. Obviously, Daniel's deck is stealth heavy. I wasn't expecting that from you, so I figured you would also benefit in a way.
Yeah,
if you understand your cards. Of course, there's a pool cost later on, cumulative. But yeah, I think that was the one.
Yeah, as I said, the action itself wasn't of any consequence to me. I just wanted to knock off Blood the Vessel.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, so that's the one that I remember, because I thought if he has one, this guy probably has more. That's why.
Yeah, I mean, in hindsight, maybe I should have left it so I could, more than likely discard some of my combat cards.
I would have wanted to see how it would affect the entire table mechanics, maybe, ideally, like 3 or 4 rounds in.
I think generally, Constant Revolution people don't really care too much about it. It's not like Smiling Jack that just basically is just hitting pool. I mean, sure, Blood on Vamp, but it's at some point that's all pool.
When Smiling Jack hits the table, it is everyone's responsibility to get rid of it.
True, in theory. In practice...
No. In practice, it's everyone's responsibility.
Yeah.
Not everyone is going to actually act on that responsibility.
Fair enough. Yeah.
I think most people, when they see a jack, they'll let it go for the first round, maybe 2. But then it hits like 3. That's when they say, "Why don't you do it? Why don't you do it?" It's like pointing fingers. And whoever has the one that can maybe a small cap minion or something. That's usually the one that the table sort of points out. I think this one should do that.
Well, there's the meme I posted on Flames of the Netherworld a while back, where it's not Frodo, Bilbo Baggins, and he's got the one ring. It's like, why not? Why shouldn't I let my prey put one more pull on Jack?
I like that.
Yeah.
It appeals to a certain a more base nature.
I think the thing as well is that VtES is a game of incremental value, and you're always just kind of sitting there like, okay, so I've burnt 2 pull or 2 blood from Smiling Jack, and then if I burn it, my prey doesn't lose that 2 pull or 2 blood, so maybe I can convince my prey to do it. And then you sit on it and like you mentioned, the answers, you just start pointing fingers. It's like, no, you do it. No, you do it.
Well, that's the joke, right? It's always the Jack's predator that has the least to gain, but somehow they're just greedy.
Yeah. That's basically what happens every time. Well, to be fair, I've seen tables that, actively work together and burn Smiling Jack the moment they see it. So.
And I've seen tables where 1 or 2 people are like, "Come on, guys, we got to burn the Jack." Right, fine. I'll burn the Jack. Just let me do it, and just give me a little bit of leeway, and I'll burn the Jack for you. Happy? No? Okay, fine. I'm burning the Jack. I don't care what anybody else says. Jack has to go.
I like those tables as long as I'm not the person saying, "Oh, I'm gonna burn Jack no matter what." Now that the game's sort of done and dusted, looking back on your decks, is there anything you would change? I think John talked about it a little bit. What about you, Daniel? You were
yeah. I've actually already made some changes to the deck since. For example, I found Power-Based Montreal just really didn't do anything because I figured that actually bringing out more vampires is not the way this deck wants to go. I popped in a Coven instead just to recoup some of the blood. And on the topic of, bringing out vampires, yeah, it's something I want to do, but not to the point that I want to be playing Mess with Bed yet, so they've been dropped. Instead, I've got some Meteor Influences. It costs 1 blood, but it puts 1 blood back on every vampire. Means they're going to be hunting a little bit less. And on the crypt side, because I'm not Mess with Bed shedding, I want to make sure that all of my vampires can play Waters of Duat, so I've just dropped the 3 and 4 cap vamps, which still leaves me at 12. In fact, those are the only changes I've made, though I am looking to trim a couple more cards. I also dropped Narrow Minds because I'm not flicking. So, but, it's more Narrow Minds I normally play to discourage my prey from flicking my bleeds as much. But because they're all bleeds for 1, well, they can flick it if they want. They're going to run out of flicks before I run out of bleeds.
Sure. Yeah, I guess in your case, it's would only be a deterrent for your predator to flick
Correct.
as much, but they're still gonna flick anyway. So maybe they might run out of blood at some point. But
yeah, but my Grand Predator then needs to do a better job of controlling his prey or her prey.
Yep.
Yeah.
fair enough.
But I've also got still 7 Ecstasies, 3 Ophidian Gazes, so that's a total of 13 bleed reduction.
Oh yeah, I love those ecstasies. If someone clipped this out of context. So with the inclusion of media influence, do you think there's maybe an argument for playing, say, Tribute to the Master as a like a pull, little bit of
There is very much an argument, but even without media influence, there is an argument for a Tribute to the Master. Just a one-off.
Yeah. I can see
maybe
that.
2.
That's
Maybe 2. 2 is just greedy. I mean, 80 card deck, John. 80 card decks.
Yeah, like I said, I'm at 88 cards at the moment, looking to drop down to 85-ish.
Yeah, for those for our viewers who might be confused when I say 80 card decks, but we were having a chat before we started, and I think we were sort of discussing the merits of 80 card decks versus 90 card decks.
So my personal 2 cents on that is super hyper aggressive deck. You want to be at 60 cards. The fewest number of cards, the most consistent. So at 90 cards, you want to be seeing a lot of cards like you're a combat heavy deck, or something, or you've got a lot of variety that you want to be able to go through. At 70 to 75 is your standard sort of aggressive deck that doesn't want but you've got enough cards that you don't need to go through the entire table super, super fast. And then your 80 to maybe 85 is where, your most decks are going to want to sit.
Yeah, I find in theory, the 90 card deck gives you the most options because, you have 90 cards worth of options, but what it does most of the time, I find during gameplay is it messes with probability too much, and you're not like you have to just put so many of things that you want to see, and then you start putting more of the other things because probability changes and so on and so forth. Yeah.
So I find that going from like 80 to 90, you end up putting, one extra of this card, one extra of that card, one of that one, just to keep the numbers the same, but the ratios the same, and then you end up with only, 2 or 3 extra slots. So, just to keep your balance, you get 3 new cards. It's often not worth it. That said, if you've already got a lot of one-offs, 1 or 2 of this, 1 or 2 of that, and you're really just looking to increase the variety, or maybe you've got a lot of one-offs and you just want to increase the consistency of something, putting a few more copies in, bring it up closer to 90, won't really change your ratios too much if you've already got a lot of one-offs, but it will make that thing that you've now got 5 or 6 of a lot more consistent.
For me, my main consideration is those unique MasterCards and or equipments, things like Montreal or Info Highway, where you really don't want to pack multiples, and how important they are to get in your early game. So if you run like 2 Dreams to 1 Highway and 1 Montreal, like let's say you're trying to bring out a 9 cap on turn 2, that's what you need, one of those 4 cards essentially, if you're 4th player or onwards. Then I would try to trim down to like 70-ish. If that's not such a big deal in the early game, then I think it's kind of arbitrary whether you go to up to 80 or 90, because as you say, you can just adjust the ratios accordingly and scale up to 90 and just pack more of whatever.
Hey, one thing with that though is, if you're saying you really want to get out your 9 cap on turn 2, right, and start acting, I'm already starting to consider that as a more aggressive sort of deck, because you're not taking your time. You're trying to get out your bigger thing faster. And so, going down to a 70 card deck does give you that that reliability of getting your one-offs a lot quicker. But the other thing is, if you do really want to see your Info Highway, Dreams, or Power Base Montreal early in a bigger deck, then you just add more copies, and sure, you won't be able to get a second one down at once. But that's why, particularly in a large deck, you should be running a number of cards that will let you cycle through and discard the stuff that you don't need, or at least draw into more stuff, such as your Barons. There's a bunch of actions that let you discard things or draw extra cards and discard down. Your Dreams is a prime example of that lubrication.
I think those approaches would work. Like cards that improve card flow, definitely. If you've got space, any deck.
So what I was calling lubrication is cards is card flow.
Yeah, and then at the other end of the spectrum, John's also right in that yeah, if you don't want to really worry about too much about the cards like Barons and all that, you can just run a smaller deck. So I mean,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's probably just a decision you kind of have to make, and then there's no. I think at the end of the day, there's no real sort of hard and fast rule like this works for this, that definitely works for that. Everything is in theory, and then you run the deck a few times, and then you realize, oh, maybe this works better. Maybe that works better. I mean, it's an interesting topic. We can talk hours and hours on
topic for another video. My video on it.
Yeah, we've. I mean, I'm really happy we talked about this because it's something that when we talk to new players, even when we talk about between players, deck building, things like ratios and all this doesn't really come up much. So yeah, I love that it came up. It was one of the
hardest things to get my head around as a new player.
Yeah, so I love that it came up. But yeah, just conscious of how much time we've got left. I think Danz, you've touched briefly as well at the start of early in this video, like cards you would like to change up in your deck. Is there?
Well, actually, I just wanna. I think I'll turn it back into my Stanislava deck. I think
that's absolutely not the same.
I don't think honestly, I don't think Gangren's really my favorite.
I thought it started from the V5 Gangrel deck, which is why I played the way I played, but apparently I was wrong.
I do like the older generation vamps. I think they worked, and I kind of did miss the force map marches. So yeah, can you do no celerity? So
and the 4 votes and the 2 bleed
and I had
and the dominate
and the dominate values.
Dominate is a privilege, not a right.
It's a clutch. It's a clutch that works amazingly well.
Let's always pack a Lost in Translation whenever.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, VtES is a game that encourages small value.
Yes,
encourages patient play. Anytime somebody goes for a big impact something, there'll always be a flick or delaying tactics. So, all right. Thank you very much, guys, for coming on to this very, very first episode of Private Audience. Did I call it Private Audience? I think I called it Private Audience.
Closed session.
Yeah, at the start you're like, closed session. I'm pretty sure I
should write this down somewhere.
Private Audience, that's a different channel altogether.
You know what? Take 2. All right, guys. Thank you very much for coming on to this first episode of Closed Session. And also thank you very much for joining the latest episode of Shell Games. I hope I can get the opportunity to invite one or more of you back for more Shell Games and more of this chat that we're having right now. And again, congratulations, Daniel, for winning that game. And I'll see you all next time.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for staying all the way to the end of this video. It was a pretty eye-opening discussion for me as well. I hope you managed to get something out of it. And if you liked this video, remember to give it a like, subscribe to my channel, and drop us a comment in the comment section below. And remember, if you want to support the channel directly, you can do so at patreon.com/swakuoz. And until next time, see ya!